Hello, and welcome to the Around the Block webinar series, powered by Future Blockchain Summit, hosted alongside GITEX at Dubai World Trade Center from October 10th through October 13th, 2022, where we discuss all things around blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrency, Web 3.0, and the metaverse. My name is Steven, and I'm excited to be joined today by Cointelegraph Japan's Hayate Max.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here to host this webinar series with GITEX Global to bring to you what's happening in blockchain inside the MENA region. Be excited for more. Hello, we're joined here today with Adrian from CryptoBirb for our 9th episode of our webinar with Cointelegraph Japan and GITEX. The Future Blockchain Summit webinar is here for you. Let's jump in and please introduce yourself and a little bit about your history.
Sounds good. Hi everybody, it's Adrian CryptoBirb from Poland, 28 to become 29 this year, later in the year. I come from Poland, Warsaw, which is the capital. I'm very proudly positioned within the crypto community, crypto industry as a trader, as an investor, as an analyst, and also as a form of an influencer, if you will. And many people would probably recognize me of Twitter, where I've agglomerated so far around 660,000 participants, audience members, if you will. I'm very proud for that, and I'm very happy to talk to all of you guys today about that as well.
We're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for making time. And you are an investor, advisor, analyst. And how did that come to place? Where did you grow so much of a following?
Oh, well, I think this comes with the time to start with. The time factor, when you keep putting in the work, it tends to work as your ally, right? Mm-hmm. So, for me, it's actually that I always try to have so much to do, as in put in so much effort, get busy with so many things. Yeah. So that I actually need to organize my time and then prioritize stuff, right? As in there's very little noise outside of my kind of like schedule, if you will, right? I'm not necessarily like, I'm not necessarily the typical 9-to-5 guy, right? Whenever it takes me, because I run my own business for 5 years already. So I've learned enough so that this volatility in the market, requires me to adjust in terms of the business, requires me to adjust in terms of the strategy of growth, for my personal brands and also investment wise. Mm-hmm. So it's all kind of like, coming together to a proper lifestyle, right? So like I said, it's never 9 to 5. It's an actually 24/7, 365 kind of like a busyness going on. However, like I said, I do my best to prioritize on what is most relevant for myself, for the business, for the investments. And that's how I try to kind of like build the blocks around that in the daily schedule, right?
Amazing, and 660K followers, and they're very excited to read about what you're analyzing, and you've been here. You're an OG here, right?
Well, that is probably questionable, right? But I try my best. I've been around since 2017. However, my very first attempts into crypto, as in the first time I heard of it, was I think reaches to 2014, because my main kind of like lead degree is master's in chemical technology, right? Yes. This engineering kind of like a degree. Then I got the second degree on the top school of economics in Poland, and within these management, but also in the finance. So like I said, it's all a little bit, coming together. I got my engineering degree, which helps me kind of like, I think, approach things, structurally, as in terms of the optimization, right? The engineering is all about optimization. So my first kind of like ideal job as this chemical engineer would be to, set up a factory, make sure that all the settings for each and every single chemical, in terms of the amount, quantity, that the flow would be measured and properly introduced, right? So that it optimizes the amount of, let's say, fluid or product that comes out of the factory and you can sell, right, business-wise. So the very same kind of like streamline of thoughts process, in terms of the optimization comes into trading actually, right? I see. And me being an analyst on my own path, which is basically CMT. This is CMT Association, Chartered Market Technician Association, based in the US. Which congregates, the and standardizes the technical analysis approach, which is something that I perform, right? So there are lots of different forms of analysis in the market. I mean, you can try to guess it on the sentiment, as in when people turn extremely negative, then perhaps that's a good time to buy, right? You can base it off the fundamental analysis. Let's say you check on the cash flows or the capital expenditures, right? Or basically just try to evaluate the stock shares, in terms of the earnings, through the proxy of earnings, how much the company will earn in future. But my side comes from the technicals, as in the market techniques, right? So I look inside the market, check the, to analyze the interrelationship between the two investors, let's say, and try to, well, it's always a guessing game. Try to guess, the best behavior, expected reaction to the market, right? So let's say the market tanks, the market, goes down, and what do those traders kind of like anticipate, right? And that's the puzzle that you're trying to solve there as a technical analyst, and that's what I do on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And we are in this bear market. Are you enjoying it? And it seems obvious that you've been here for a long time. It's like a rotation. Things are going. It's happening in a repeated manner. So do you think it's going to repeat itself again? So we're going to have another crypto winter, and things are going to come back again in the halving. Is it going to change, or do you think it's going to be the same?
Yeah, so I do think that, well, they say that history likes to rhyme a lot, right?
Yes.
As in, the history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. So while you're never going to have exactly the same days, because the things are dynamic in life, right? Each and every single second passing is not exactly the same as it's been. So the market keeps constantly evolving, keeps changing. There are so many, almost like, you would guess, infinite amount of variables coming into the market which shape the price and reactions in the market. So it's a very hard job, even for like some quantum computers, if you will, for the amount of data, and that is constantly created on a daily basis, real-time basis. So again, it's never going to be exactly the same. However, it is based off the very same, I should say, fundamentals of the market, as in what shapes the long-term trends, right? And for the stock companies, for commodity prices, for gold, silver, and so on, is always the fundamental utility to it, right? In economics, there is this utilitarian approach, as in the expected expected value, right? What does it actually do to you, right? So this utilitarian approach from Bernoulli, it helps you understand like the expectations of the market participants, right? As in why people tend to behave irrationally, right? Because this irrationality, especially at the peaks and at the bottoms, which is the peaks of the bull market and the bottoms of the bear market, is peaking. This irrationality, the amount of irrationality is, is basically having its own climax, right? The biggest amount of like irrational decisions is made on the peaks and on the bottoms. The time that people feel exactly the most optimistic about the market, they would just go and spend, endlessly, because they are so rich, they are so good at it, right? And it's never ending story. They're always going to be rich. So they would spend a lot, right? It's actually called irrational exuberance stage, from Fisher, I think. And on the opposite end, you have this kind of like a panic mode, right? This revulsion in the market when, people are basically so sick and tired of hearing of crypto or any other assets that they just lost money on. And well, it's a very perfect opposite of the euphoria peaks, right? So, so it always comes in forms of bubbles, right? Especially when something is new, when the market is new, there's some bubble, bubble effect to it. As in, bubble is a situation that, well, is a self-promoting kind of like a positive feedback loop, right? As in, the market starts catching up, the people start catching up, start buying. Then the market just, if the people buy, right, then there is a demand influx and people see the prices increase, so they decide to buy even more, which attracts even more people. And they buy and the prices go even faster and higher, which eventually just, comes to this like a critical stage, this stress, if you will, that there are some insider selling, just like you would have, or some critical even, just like you would have very recently with Theta, I think, ecosystem, as a blockchain with Luna, which collapsed basically overnight. One of the top market cap projects in the world just disappeared overnight, basically, right? So there are some triggers to it which accelerate the panic selling, right? Which then comes on the other side of the slope, and after people, had experienced this massive buying out period, they are there to witness the selling of period, and it's all fluctuating in the cycles this way.
I agree, and when you say that it's fluctuating, there's a boom and there's so many up downs and people going into hype, but now it's kind of going into range and it may be static for another 1 or 2 years. I don't know, but maybe when there's no hype, there's no degen trading, there's no aping in, all those crypto type traders. When that's gone, maybe it's a good time for people to come in and kind of get used to crypto trading and actually learn and get used to it. Would you think?
Yeah. Honestly, I do agree with what you were saying. There are a couple of reasons to it, and first of all, I always think that as a crypto enthusiast, one always needs to kind of like decide what they have in it, right? What they are in for, right? As in, they're always going to tell you perhaps it's for the tech, it's for the crowds, it's for the community, or for the money, right? I always approach it from the investment point of view. So to me, crypto is one of the asset classes in the financial markets, right? Just the way you have stocks, just the way you have derivatives, as in futures options, you have commodities, then currencies, and you have cryptocurrencies on site. So to me, the crypto is I want to say like a risk driver, for my portfolio itself. So I'll never be 100% all in with all my money into crypto, but I do have my position in crypto to diversify within the portfolio larger context, right? So again, I know many people who, like you said, ape in on a daily basis and they just go relentlessly buying. Then usually they do poorly on the longer term kind of like perspective, because again, the big, I think, drawback of crypto is that while it can get you insane, leverage and insane amount of money to be made, it also tends to, perform poorly in terms of its drawdowns, right? Funnily enough, Bitcoin, is very specific for its cyclicality, as in the cycles of Bitcoin are usually, again, digital scarcity driven, as in this halving, right? Each and every single halving occurs, every 4 years, if you will, tends to empower those cycles, which last approximately, 4 years. And this builds this digital scarcity on the fundamental basis, right? Just like you would mine gold, there's only so much gold you can mine basically in the world, right? There are some other theories that you can source gold from some like asteroids, planetoids, and some whatever,
or
from outer space, alien gold. However, there's only so much gold at this time that you can mine, right? So this builds its scarcity. And same way it should work with Bitcoin, right? In terms of like digital gold being the digital scarcity.
Yes.
And this digital scarcity is encoded within the Bitcoin's protocol as a cashless, payment system this way. And it's driven by the cycles are driven by its fundamental value, as in this digital scarcity, right? When you compare that with stocks, you don't have their firm behind it. You don't have this human resources capital behind it, which eventually makes the company. So many people again would try to argue whether or not fundamental analysis, as in this digital scarcity has any value whatsoever, in Bitcoin. However, from my observations, there is an actual connection between those halving cycles and the pricing cycles, right? So typically when the digital scarcity kind of like increases, because the halving is the process that cuts in half basically the block rewards for the miner, so it's 100% more difficult basically relatively to mine the same amount of Bitcoin. So this is typically coming with price increase eventually. It's not an immediate increase, it's not an immediate hike. However, you usually get to see some largely upsloping market price action, right? And then
so maybe they should just hodl until then.
Well,
is that an investment strategy?
Yeah. So yeah, there is an investment strategy. There are a couple of those actually, right? I'm a position trader, right? So I take a position and I hold on to it for quite some time until it loses validity or until it's realized. There is a buy and hold strategy as well. So basically, imagine you inherited Apple stocks, right? After your family members, and you just don't feel like doing anything with it. You just hold on to it for years. Perhaps it's going to come out something else out of that. So there is this buy and hold strategy, and there is also this swing trading strategy, right, which focuses on the short-term kind of like market movement. So you try to benefit with smaller volatility, with lower volatility, with shorter periods, right, rather than just hold it for years. However, the lower down the time frames you go, the more capital there should be, right, in the position, because eventually when you kind of like shrink your potential movements from like 500%, right, or like 16,000%, 1,600%, just like Bitcoin I think had recently, to its peak. If you come down the time frames, then you trade on the 1% movements, right? Then you have to have proportionately more money, right, to benefit from it. Otherwise, if you trade $100, with 1% movements, that it's the transaction costs, the fees are going to actually exceed any profits you make out of that. So again, lots of and the most degenerate, of course, strategy is basically like this intraday trading or this day trading, where you position yourself a couple of times throughout the day to benefit from even smaller movements, and then you apply a lot of leverage to it, as in you borrow money from some exchanges, go press on like 100x leverage, 10, 20x leverage. But then you trade basically noise. It's called noise trading. There is no kind of like consequence in the price movements, right? There is no fundamental meaning in that. This is just a noise, and this noise tends to get back to the mean value, as in imagine you have set a flat mean flat curve, and the price is going to oscillate around this flat curve for some time until it catches on in some larger trend, and then this intraday trading focuses on this low kind of like pattern, low range of this volatility, right? But then, like I said, high leverage, high risks at the same time, high capital. And it all comes with, I should say, definitely big barriers for not experienced people.
Yes, not experienced people. That's where a lot of the money is lost, I guess. And when, of course, as a trader, I just wanted to ask. We see that, it's not a place for amateur traders. There's so much data, so much signals that people need to look at. There's experience, and maybe some luck as well. And do you think that people should come in and actually settle themselves as a trader? Do you think it's a good time to start? Or I feel that if they want to really make some upsides, it's even better to start their own project, even and get the upside there. What's the difference there? Are you starting any projects as well or no?
Yeah, I think this is a perfect question, to be honest. Like I said, I've run my own firm for 5 years almost. And I've experienced any sort of like volatility types you could imagine from the market, right? There is a very strong correlation in terms of like how the company performs and how the demand works in the market with how Bitcoin performs, right?
Yes.
Usually get some insane all-time highs in the markets and at the same time in the company, right? And when the market tanks, you see that also within the crypto industry in terms of the businesses, right? So many businesses, have evaporated. They went insolvent, that exchanges going broke. Like I said, top market capitalization projects basically, evaporating all of a sudden overnight. So it's definitely a lot of risks to it, and as the history learns, the vast majority of those firms, of those projects, basically overestimate their risks, right? They tend to get overconfident in the market and reject this proper risk management control, if you will, in favor of catching, some euphoric vibes, which is never going to work well in the long term. So, like I said, holding or starting a business is a form of investment as well, right? You don't only invest your own resources, but you also invest your time. And economics 101, time is money, right? So what you trade it for. And so the way I approach my own firm is it is part of my portfolio, right? it is part of diversification for the portfolio. So I consider it a valid element to this entire puzzle of mine. And I think this is also the way that many big investors, as in Warren Buffett or perhaps just Livermore in the past, Benjamin Graham, they always approach that in terms of like the business from the fundamental point of view, as in what part of the portfolio construction it becomes.
Yes.
So you don't want to be over-invested in 150 small businesses. Perhaps it's a better idea to set up or be in control, acquire 3 larger businesses, companies. So again, I have this very strict approach in terms of any business is I trade it for time, right? Time is money, so it's also a form of investment that returns and generates certain returns, and you have certain risks assigned to it. So it's a proper investment, right? You can measure that. You can put some expectations, just like you would position yourself in Bitcoin, right, or in stocks or in gold and so on. So, like answering the question, I think from my perspective, it's definitely worth running a business, not only for like financial reasons, but it's shaping yourself, your own character, obviously. And while it may sound a little bit generic, as in they're always going to tell you, oh yeah, set up a business, it's an amazing journey, right? You're going to change your life, blah blah blah. So it's a lot of risks assigned to it, right? There's a lot of persistence somebody needs to put in it. And a lot of analysis and risk control, just like I said. Without risk control, any money movements are basically worthless and leading to ruin eventually. So running a business, yes, controlling the risk is the environment that one needs to be set up with. And then in terms of like the timing for the market, I do believe that right now Bitcoin is somewhere around like 75% of the peak,
yes.
Right? It's decreased 75% of the peak. Historically, like I said, Bitcoin cycles tend to operate within those 4-year periods, and peak to trough, kind of like a distance, tends to bottom out somewhere around 80 to 90%, right? So accounting for the historical reasons, I would say that there's still potential for some more downside. However, it's not necessarily certain. I've already done my first purchases. Like I said, I'm never all in crypto, so it's a decision for me how much more weight on my portfolio I put into crypto rather than if I go all in or all out, yes. Right? I have this comfort. I have this comfort also that I had been properly diversified before the crash happened. I wasn't necessarily the most expecting, I wasn't having this very low expectations for the market to crash at that time. I was definitely seeing some higher targets there. Perhaps it was just my own kind of like biases playing out. However, I think that the amount of economic signals from the outside, which Bitcoin is also driven by clearly, tells you that it was not only me kind of like surprised, that the entire planet universe of investors were basically surprised, not only by the Bitcoin itself, but Bitcoin peaked exactly the same day, the same moment and hour that stocks market did, right? And it came with this. I remember this day. I was here also in Dubai. And it came with this Evergrande news kind of like collapse, right? This Chinese monstrous company, which was going insolvent. And I remember reading the headline. There was this news, and Bitcoin was printing new highs through like $65,000. And there was this new news that came out, and it tackled down the prices immediately, right? Yes. Taking it down to like 61 or what was that? So this was the day that the stocks peaked, that crypto peaked, and after that, it's actually developed into something that is confirmed, that was yesterday's confirmed with the quarterly close, to be the worst half a year in financial history probably ever, yes. Right? So the Bitcoin's quarterly candle is the largest to the downside ever. The stocks, as in, I think overall we are looking at the once in generation opportunity to an extent, right? There's always some risk to it, but as long as you control the risk, you're fine. And just taking the first quarter, as in towards April, early this year, you were looking at the worst opening to the year, to any year in the history of, let's say, S&P 500 index, right? Yes. So worst historical performance of any stock kind of like market ever in terms of how the market opened. And then it's extended, and you have this galloping inflation, double digit, right? You have interest rate hikes, which dries out the market out of the capital and liquidity. So There you have the war, the geopolitical risks as well. So it's all kind of like coming together, right, to deteriorate the markets.
Yes.
But at the same time, the more the markets deteriorate, the more opportunity eventually it becomes. So answering a question whether or not it's worth it, it's always going to be individual question and answer, right?
Of course.
For me, it's worth getting, you know, already first entries. I'm planning overall 3 entries into it. I'm not delusional, you know, to believe that I will catch the bottom or sell the top. It's impossible, basically.
Yes.
Like how many times in your life, you know, can you win the lottery? Right?
Yes.
Perhaps once if you're lucky, but if you continue doing that, then you dry it of your capital before you manage to get a series of a couple of wins like that. So I'm scaling in my positions. I've never truly exited it fully. I never closed out like all out. But at the same time, you know, I'm expecting a little bit or more downside. I'm ready for it. I had been properly diversified, so I have this comfort, right, to wait for it. But I think that the opportunity is really amazing, and both in the stock markets and in the cryptos, and it's like overall once in generation, in my opinion, opportunity. You're not going to probably witness, at least based on the history, too many opportunities like that. That's my take.
Great. That's a great answer. And going into the final questions. So we're in the UAE, and we are in a webinar for the October Future Blockchain Summit that's going to be held in Dubai. So about what you just said, you know, if you're going to build and maybe the halving comes in 2024, and you know things may build up again. Until then, what are you going to expect here in Dubai? Are you going to come here often? Are you looking forward to seeing more crypto businesses here? Are you going to go on with your trading? What's your plan here in crypto and Dubai?
Yeah, I think, you know, Dubai is actually a very, very good place for it. I mean, I wish many more countries, you know, in the planet had the very same open-minded approach.
Yes.
Right. Of course, there is, like I said, there are some risks to it, right? However, with being open-minded, you may take a use of this opportunity on the personal level and on the country level. So I think that the cryptocurrencies are more an opportunity than the risk, than the threat, let's
Absolutely.
say. That there's so much, I think, so many benefits that the people can benefit from. And well, eventually countries is all about the people, right? It should be at least. So I like this approach that UAE is taking. I'm definitely, you know, very, very inspired by how many conferences, by how many, you know, businesses are getting open here and introduced to the larger public in Dubai and in UAE overall. So it's very encouraging, I think. I think I've read this headline somewhere over the article that out of India, if I'm not mistaken, there was like a huge percentage of companies that have just moved basically to UAE just because of the regulations, right? So it is also like a clean confirmatory, you know, evidence that it's not only empty words, as in Dubai saying, yeah, come here, Dubai is fine, you know, crypto is fine, but it's actually they're following actions, right, after the words, and this is what the majority of the countries, I think, are missing, and this is for against their favors, right? And crypto, like I said, is a very promising asset class itself. And just like it was with the internet, you know, when everybody was trying to ban the internet because it was about to fail, and then it was never to replace the telephones and so on. And crypto is yet another kind of like, you know, episode to the story. And I do think that, you know, so many businesses are getting open again, so many crypto conferences. I'll do my best to attend as many and share my stuff, share my knowledge somehow, try to inspire people again.
And investors, traders too, they should come to Dubai as well.
Yeah, that's what I think. Again, I mean, the taxation itself, I think, is also very encouraging, right? So we're looking at a lot of different, you know, economic triggers, this PR triggers that are very much working, right, in favor of the country. That's what I respect. That's what I think, you know, is what taking opportunity basically about.
Thank you so much. And you're coming in October, and so we'll see you in the Future Blockchain Summit, and maybe we can have you speak more on what's going on.
I'd love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.